Om Namah Shivaya. Okay, Om. I'm Swami Sitaramananda. I am a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and health teacher. I'm speaking to you from the Shivananda Ashram in Vietnam. Normally I would be in the ashram in California, but now I'm here. And we have tonight, we have 5 translators. Happen to be, they've been faithful translator for all the satsang so far now. Every Sunday we have had many satsang on different topics. I counted, it was 17 topics. So we have Priya Chaitanya, Vietnamese translation. We have Swami Adipa Shakti, he's a co-host. He's from the Yoga Farm. We have Narayani Kim, she's a Korean. And we have Yamuna, she's from Japan. And then we have Kumari, she would translate in Chinese. And then we have Yashoda, and she translates in Russian. So these are the translations for tonight. And then we have right now 61 people, and we are in the second day of the Eco Yoga conference at the Yoga Farm Memorial Day weekend. We normally would have a yoga retreat there, but because of corona crisis, so now we do everything online. So we have all the teachers that have agreed to teach online. We had a full day today. It was very, very nice, very informative. And then tonight, I'll be talking to you on the topic of Ahimsa, love, animal compassion, and vegetarianism. So before we start, anybody want to say something? So you have a button on a chat, and questions and answers. If you have any questions, and okay, so it's a very important topic. We've been talking about that in the last few days about ecology, but this is more precisely the topic on Ahimsa and vegetarianism. It's not a new topic. Vegetarianism is not a new topic, but it's good to revisit in the context of this crisis, in the context of the Eco Yoga conference. It is good to revisit the question of cruelty to animals and to encourage vegetarianism as a way of life that will bring peace and healing to the earth and to us in general. So it's a very important topic. So tonight we'll be talking about vegetarianism from the point of view, the spiritual point of view, ethical point of view, health and environmental point of view. Okay? So now the facts and myth of meat eating. That's what we'll be talking about first. So in many developing countries, including China and India, people are moving away from the traditional plant-based diets to meat-intensive diets as a result of modernization and globalization, okay, which has facilitated the spread of Western culture, consumer culture around the world. I've been in China, India, we see McDonald's in many cities. So the more people are rich for some reason, their diet change and they start to eat meat. So meat consumption per capita in the US is, it is said, 124 kg in 2002, 89 kg in 1961, so about 40% increase in the space of around 40 years. In India, India has 5.2 kg in 2002 and 3.7 kg in 1961, also a 40% increase. But because the two countries stand very differently, okay, you imagine the comparison in US. In 2002, people consume 124 kg meat, and India is 5.2, very different, big difference. So US ranks among the highest meat-eating countries, and India is the lowest. But it is said that over 200 billion animals are consumed by the global population of over 7 billion every year. So the global population is 7 billion now, and people consume 200 billion animals, imagine. And meat consumption is projected to more than double by 2050, as the population will grow to over 9 billion. So a 2018 study published states that meat consumption could rise by as much as 76% by 2050 as a result of human population growth and rising affluence, which will increase greenhouse gas emission and further reduce biodiversity. So according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, in 2018, more than 200 million animals were killed for food around the world every day. Million. Just on land. And if you add fishes, we get closer to 3 billion animals killed daily. That comes out to 72 billion land animals, over 1.2 trillion aquatic animals killed for food around the world every year. So we just do some research and we take the statistics. I don't know how precise everything is, but just to have an idea, that's a lot. So carnism, C-A-R-N-I-S-M, carnism, is a term coined by the psychologist named Melanie Joy. So I did some research and I found that term, I'm quite happy, is a strong belief of meat eating. So it's carnism. We talk about vegetarianism as an exception in nutrition and meat eating as normal. So psychologist Melanie Joy points out that meat eating or carnism is a belief system which varies from culture to culture. She points out that we eat cow, pig, fish, but feel disgusted by the idea of eating dog, cat, mice. It is a strong belief that would become oblivious to anything, that would question the belief and have a long list of justifications. So I will share with you my story. I was raised non-vegetarian, even though we did not have much meat to eat when we grew up, because the family was poor in Vietnam in the 60s. So daily, you go to market, there's no refrigerator, you go to market, you buy a few hundred grams of meat for the whole family of 12 to consume 2 meals a day. So the meat is very small and you cut in very small piece, as thin like the meat can fly up in the air. There's not much meat really to eat, but still the belief that meat eating is important for health remains strong. So chicken meat was served only during celebrations and holidays. So I myself, as a young girl, used to play with the hens and the chickens in the backyard and was horrified one day to witness my friend chicken being killed for meat. The head chopped off with blood flying everywhere, being put in a pot of boiling water to have her feathers removed while she was still flapping her wings and alive. So it's not like you go to the supermarket and you see the chicken piece or chicken wing, under cellophane, and in the freezer is all very clean, and you forget that it is an animal there before alive. But it was my friend. So it was too much to handle. So I remember hiding under the table, refusing to eat until I was forced to come out, eyes closed, and eat, because I was told it was good for you. So I met the first vegetarian in my life later on as an adult, and was shocked that she could be vegetarian and yet be so healthy. So I actually didn't believe my eyes. I come and touch her, because how can a person that is vegetarian can be so healthy? She has rosy cheeks and look very good. So I woke up to the reality that meat eating is a choice, not a necessity. And I felt much lighter and more joyful after dropping all meat eating immediately after. I was feeling very light and happy, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my soul. So the lightness of being was coming from the feeling of not participating in the violence to animals, and from relieving my conscience from that sin. So I have been vegetarian for nearly 50 years. So today, if I listen to myself, I still feel guilty for not being more assertive in teaching vegetarianism. I've been teaching this for a long time, for about 40 years, but not really. And bringing awareness to suffering of our fellow beings, the animals. So we cannot make spiritual progress if we do not wake up to the atrocities that we as humans inflict on animals. The sufferings we experience as humans, even though through diseases or infections or environmental calamities or emotional sufferings in our private life, are directly related to our heartless ignorance, arrogance, and violence, our lack of love and respect. This is what I believe. If love is peace and peace is love is unity, compassion and oneness, if love is our ultimate truth and happiness, then we are far away from it. If we're still cooperating with the meat industry and meat consumption, if we do not wake up, we will continue to suffer physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So we all need to wake up and save the planet and save ourselves. So now, let's talk about animal consciousness. There are many stories of the connection between animals and humans, and between animals of different species with each other. Farm animals feel pleasure and sadness, excitement and resentment, depression, fear and pain. They are much more sensitive and intelligent than we never imagined. The life of animals is as sacred as human life. So according to Vedanta philosophy, names and forms are many, but consciousness is one. What that means? It means that the body and the mind are different, but we share the same consciousness. We share the same consciousness with the pig, with the butterfly, with the chicken, dog, cat, all the different species. We need to disregard our strong identification with our species in order to understand and respect the other different species. So humans have gained lots of knowledge from their previous birth in many species. We have the knowledge and intelligence of previous species in our subconscious mind. Yogis assume the different asanas or yoga poses based on the animal postures in order to tap into the energy and the intelligence of these species. So now we are human, but we have been many, many different bodies. So in yoga asanas, we have posture of the turtle, the fish, the crow, the peacock, the cow, the cat, the dog, the lion, the eagle, the pigeon, the cobra, the dolphin, and so on. So our human intellect is meant to further our evolution, to find the truth behind all names and forms. That's the reason why we are equipped with intellect and we are born as human. So, but we are not doing this. We are born human and we take advantage of our position with our intellect to create harm and then to justify it. So as sentient beings, animals have rights as much as humans to be respected, to be loved, and to have a decent life. So imagine innumerable animals suffer from lack of grass and soil, air and light, They're overcrowded in industrial farming facilities, deliberately kept as immobile as possible, living in artificial conditions, coerced to produce, subject to inhuman treatments. They are being thrown, pushed, discarded, considered as commodities. Commodities are like objects or merchandise, and not as sentient beings. So humans have found ways to hasten chickens' growth to the point that the vast majority of them have trouble walking or are crippled by not being able to bear their own body weight. And you know the story, the newborn calves are separated from their mothers, and many dairy cows rest no more than 3 months between pregnancies. So after their calf-bearing years are over, they're slaughtered to provide cheap hamburger meat. In intensive piggeries, female pigs sleep on bare concrete. It is not uncommon for them to be kept in small crates for their entire lives. Those which are not fit for consumption will be disposed of and suffocated. So I heard with the COVID-19 crisis, many slaughterhouses are being closed in the US. So millions of animals are being disposed of by gassing or suffocation. Imagine. So now let's talk about the topic Ahimsa and karma. Ahimsa is the foremost ethical precept in yoga. It refers to the principle of no harm, non-violence in thought, in word, and deed. Humans violate this ethical principle often and suffer from subsequent karma. So Swami Shivananda in his book Karma and Diseases, explain, he make a long list. Sometimes it's incredible, but that's what he said. A certain disease corresponds to certain action that you have done in the past. Not to make you feel guilty, but just to say that there is always a correlation or there is a consequence of everything that we do. So we need to be very careful. For example, he explained that asthma is maybe come from past life wrongdoing of literally suffocating animals. Let's say you have a rat, or you have not a rat, but you have a snake or some animal that live in the earth, and you see a hole, and you plug the hole, and they cannot breathe. Okay? So this would have consequence also. And sometimes you can have this disease of not be able to breathe. And many other examples. Swami Vishnu talk about the case of one farmer, big farmer, that all the time, every day, he beat his pigs. So they say, when you beat the flesh, and then the flesh will become more palatable or something. So then the whole neighborhood would hear the cry of the pigs. And then, then he killed them, of course. And the pig is crying miles and miles around. And then one day, this pig farmer had a disease. and the disease to his throat, that he cannot speak, and then whatever that he speak, the sound that came out is the sound of the same cry of the pig. So that's how the karma goes. Yeah, so you can imagine. Yeah, like I said, it's not to scare you, but just to say that we need to be more aware of our action. So we need to, follow this principle. Do not do to others what you do not want to be done to yourself. So Ahimsa says that we have no right to inflict suffering and death onto another living creature. If harmlessness were the keynote of our lives, then this would do more to produce peace for our world more than any other action. Okay? So if you want to bring peace to this world, you can adopt that principle. So Mahatma Gandhi was most known for his teaching in nonviolence. He was inspired by the Jain philosophy of harmlessness. Jainism. They put the Ahimsa as the main principle, and they would walk and they have a mask, and so they don't by accident breathe the insects or the mosquitoes and things, and then they have a broom so they can sweep the floor so they don't by accident step in some kind of insects. So just like that. But the main thing is they have this Ahimsa as principle. So Mahatma Gandhi said, Ahimsa is the highest duty. Even if we cannot practice it in full, we must try to understand its spirit and refrain as far as humanly possible from violence. So the question of religious duties towards the animals and of negative karma incurred from violence against them is oftentimes discussed in many scriptures and religious law books. So the principle of non-violence or ahimsa applied to animals is connected with the intention to avoid negative karmic influences which result from violence. The suffering of all beings is believed to be the results of our craving and desire, thus keeping us repeating the same karmic actions. The violence of slaughtering animals for food and its source in craving reveal flesh eating as one mode in which humans enslave themselves to suffering and perpetuate their chain of karma. So that flesh eating. So Hinduism holds that such karmic suffering affects the person who permits the slaughter of an animal. Let's say you don't kill the animal yourself, but you own a slaughterhouse. The person who kills it, the person who cuts it up, the person who buys or sells meat, the person who cooks it, the person who serves it up, and the person who eats it. So all these people are considered to be participating in this slaying of animals. So there's a very big challenge in practicing ahimsa. Ahimsa is not just abstention from violence. It encourages an active inner state of being rather than merely a passive state of refraining from violence. So ahimsa is active compassion. We might not hurt another living being. We might not eat meat, cow, chicken, and fish, but we are culturally desensitized and we ignore the plights of animals and the real state of affairs of our food chain, and we allow the injustice, the cruelty, the exploitation to continue by default. So not just killing animals for meat eating, but also we use animals for different other purpose. It is said over 115 million animals, mice, rats, dogs, cats, rabbits, monkeys, birds, among others, are killed for laboratory experiments worldwide, for chemical, for drug, for food, and cosmetics testing every year. So that's why we talk about vegetarianism for ethical and spiritual reasons. So one of the most basic laws of ecology is that every living thing exists for a reason, forming part of a greater whole. So yoga and ahimsa teach that the environment and the earth and its inhabitants form one body. And we need to show reverence for life in all its forms. Even if we become vegetarian out of ethical reasons, if we want to pursue the yoga path to wholeness and self-healing, we can no longer ignore the plight of animals. We need to confront our indifference and lack of moral courage and acknowledge that animals have a silent dignity all of their own that we have violated. Our lack of understanding and awareness of the pain we directly or indirectly cause animals reflects our own state of limited consciousness, our own deep spiritual disorder in our collective psyche of our species. So it is time to expand our horizons and to truly honor the privilege of being born human, thus using our intellect, our love, and higher faculties for conscious evolution. Means going forward and not going backward, not using the intellect to satisfy our senses, our low mind, but use our intellect to progress. So we are using our faculties in reverse. So we are not in touch with our spirit. We serve a low mind. And we are conditioned in our thinking to think that rich is better than poor. Power is better than humility. Individuality is better than collective. Big is better than small. Strong is better than weak. fast is better than slow, and that physical strength is greater than moral or spiritual strength. We think that we are technologically and intellectually superior. Therefore, human is better than animal. Technology is superior to nature. Artificial is better than natural. So in our human arrogance, we think that we own the planet and our technology gives us the power to dominate and to exploit. There is no limit to our greed and delusion. So in this deluded state of self-justification and denial, our self-awareness, spirituality, and conscious evolution take the back seat. That means we don't evolve. For contrast, look at the traditional Vedic scriptures. Animals are very present in the legends and the mystical stories, and the deities have their own vehicles as animals. For example, you have Lord Ganesha, who has the head of wisdom of the elephant, and he rides on his mouse. I won't tell you all the stories and why all this, but just to say the presence of animals are everywhere in the legends, in the spiritual stories, and the animals are very respected. Lord Vishnu rides the Garuda, the eagle, and he flies around the world to bring peace. Lord Shiva adorned himself with the snakes. The goddess Durga, who rides the lion. Saraswati, who sits by the swan. Subramanya, who rides the peacock. Krishna is guardian of the cows. So the stories depicted loving kindness and respect toward all these creatures. So Western traditional cultures and early people were at peace with the animals, and they communicate, they spoke the language of the animals. They have certain empathy. All are interdependent. The animals were friends, companions, family members, and teachers. In old time, animal husbandry was part of the farmer's way of life, producing not only the food needed by the family, also the fuel, the fertilizer, the clothing, transport power, all this. With industrialization and development of technology, we have lost our instinctive tie to the rhythm and patterns of nature. So that's a drama. With it, we lost our sense of sacredness of ourselves, of others, and of animals, and of the earth. Okay, so we lost our connection with nature. So this loss of sacredness shows as the cruel exercise of power over the earth and other creatures that are more helpless than ourselves. So we can see this in the beef, meat, dairy industry. So now, vegetarianism for environmental reasons. So it's a long list of ethical reasons. But we can also become vegetarian for environmental reasons. Animals that feed on grain or rely on grazing require more water than grain crops. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, growing crops for farm animals requires nearly half of the US water supply and 80% of its agricultural land. Animals raised for food in the US consumes 90% of the soy crop, 80% of the corn crop, and 70% of its grain. So following a plant-based diet is a much more intelligent and economical use of resources. It is ecologically sound. Producing animal-based food is typically much less efficient than the harvesting of grains, of vegetables, legumes, seeds, and fruits. So livestock production is probably the leading player in biodiversity loss. What that means? It means a vast scale of food crop cultivation is needed to rear tens of billions of farm animals. So you have that one crop cultivation. So this would cause deforestation, land degradation, and pollution, as the greenhouse gas emissions from livestock production exceed greenhouse emissions from any other human activity. So it creates climate change, and it is said here overfishing. That means, so people can become vegetarian for environmental reasons, for ethical reasons, but also for health reasons. So there are variations of vegetarian diet. Okay, so I'm not going to go to the details of the different kinds of diet. There's so much literature, so much discussions about different kinds of diet. So the idea is we need to consciously make an effort to eat for physical, mental, and spiritual health. Because what we eat is who we are. So whatever you eat, the flesh, the material thing will go to the material body, but the energy, what you eat, will go to your energy body. That's how it works. So if you eat animals that are angry, then you also become angry in your mind if you keep doing this. Angry and fearful. So always think of yourself as more than just the tongue, the senses, or the body, but as your whole being. So you need to eat for your whole being. So you know about vegetarian diet. Many have healed themselves from difficult diseases by changing to a vegetarian diet. Why? Because when you change to vegetarian diet, it also leads to a change in your inner attitude about yourself, about life in general. So that would also help very much the healing. So mentally, a vegetarian fresh diet is more calm and is higher in prana. Prana being the vital life force. So it helps with stress and positive thinking. So people do research, they compare between the athletes, those who are vegetarian and those who are not vegetarian, and they find out that those who are vegetarian has more endurance. They're not necessarily bulky and look strong, but in reality, they're more strong. They have more endurance. So when you eat vegetarian, you become more positive mentally. So spiritually, the conscious choice of non-harmful food changes our relationships to others and confirms our self-love as the love of all. Okay? So everyone wants to have love. So you need to start there. The ashram, Shivananda ashram, to accommodate different types of people, serves a lacto-vegetarian diet, which excludes eggs and includes sometimes dairy products. So there are many sources of protein in plant-based diet. You just have to do a little research, because when you turn vegetarian, you're afraid that you don't have enough protein. But there's a lot of protein in the plant-based diet. You just need to be aware when you are vegetarian, doesn't mean that you just eat salad. You're going to have a very rich meal and very fulfilling, but also very complete. But you need to do a little bit research and step out of your habits. The question of vitamin B12, sometimes it's said that if you become vegetarian, you might miss B12 in your diet, because B12 cannot be found in vegetables. But you can use supplement for B12. Certain algae and nutritional yeast, or some seaweeds, spirulina. There are many sources of B12. So if you want to change into a vegetarian diet, you need to be aware that you have a unique kind of way. Either you can go slow or you can go very fast, depending on you. Some people are called semi-vegetarian. That means they are not really vegetarian, but they hardly eat any meat. So we call them semi-vegetarian. They can be like this for a long time. And then they slowly, they would change. They would exclude in their diet fish and the poultry, and they don't feel missing it. A vegetarian diet should include a diverse mix of fruits, vegetables, grains, healthy fats, and protein. So to replace the protein provided by meat in your diet, include a variety of protein-rich plant foods like nuts, seeds, legume, tempeh, tofu, seitan. Okay? A vegetarian diet in general is easier to digest and is healthy. especially if you shop for organic products, produce, and cook the food yourself at home, while following the ayurvedic advice of food combination, following the guidelines of the 6 taste ayurvedic teaching, and also learn to use balancing spices. Okay? So this is the art of cooking vegetarian diet. You need to learn a little bit. Okay, so that's the reasons for vegetarianism. What we say, ethical reason, environmental reason, spiritual reason, health reasons. So that's my topic is over. So can just say a few words that the coronavirus has transformed the world, forcing people to remain in isolation. And then, we didn't expect, but it has an impact on the environment. The climate scientists say that the air pollution has fallen to unprecedented level in major cities of the world. Animals seem to roam freely as humans lock themselves in. So it's a very good sign, but we need to remember that we need to carry on. Despite the signs of nature coming back, very encouraging, we still have a lot to do. But this time we need to do consciously and voluntarily in a sustainable manner without this, forceful lockdown and human tragedy. Okay, and we need to do this for many years to come. We still have the choices of the kind of world that we want to live in. On November 2017, 15,364 world scientists signed a warning to humanity calling for, among other things, promoting dietary shifts towards mostly plant-based foods. That's what the scientists or the doctors recommend, that everyone shift in their diet toward a plant-based diet. And continue, there is a 2019 report in a place called the Lancet Journal. It recommended that global meat consumption be reduced by 50% to mitigate climate change. And as I'm preparing this talk, then I saw New York Times just published an article, and it is called The End of Meat. So in it, the author talked about different things, like us here today. So the meat consumption, I repeat, need to be reduced by 50% to mitigate climate change. 50%. And earlier, you remember I said there was a 40% increase in the poor country, in the rich country. Everyone thinks progress means you need to eat meat. So in this context, we need to reassess our values and our lifestyle, rethink the way we eat, And that's the most difficult thing. Why? Because it's subconscious. We function out of habit. And we like to eat certain things. Your mother always cooks certain dishes. And you get used to it. But we need to rethink the way we eat, the way we relate to our fellow beings, animals, and ultimately, we need to embrace the true health and healing for ourselves, for the earth, through vegetarianism, ahimsa, and a yoga lifestyle. Okay, to conclude, by far, the best thing that we can do to slow climate change is a global shift towards a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So it was my happiness to do this research, to put things together in a small text. So you have an idea, so we have an idea how this question is crucial for the health and healing of our planet. And if we want to alleviate the suffering that you can witness nowadays going on, when people are in quarantine, in lockdown, they are completely worried about their livelihood, and many people get sick and so on. There's so much suffering. So we have to think a little bit about the cause of the suffering. And this is one of the major cause. That means the cruelty to animals and the lack of respect. So that ends my talk today. And now we have time. You can maybe ask questions or give some comments. Now we are, how many? 83 people. So you can maybe write in the chat, and then we would let you can unmute, and then the person can speak. Okay, so you can write your question. You can talk about this topic, vegetarianism, or about eco yoga in general. We still have one more day of different lectures. And the main thing I want to tell you is on Monday, May 25th at 5:30 to 9 p.m. West Coast time, 8:30 p.m. East Coast time, and in Asia and Vietnam is 7:30 a.m. So there will be a puja or a classical ceremony, consists of prayers and mantras that will be performed by the priest Swami Vasishtananji, who is a Nambudiri priest staying at the ashram in Grass Valley. So he will do a special ceremony for asking for forgiveness to Mother Earth, and also to all these animal spirits that have been abused or killed. So if you are interested, you can give your name, send to the ashram, attention Swami Adipa Shakti, your name, your nakshatra, which is your birth star. So you have to have somebody calculated, and Swami Adipa Shakti, he promised if you send your birth time and exact time of birth and location, your name. If you don't know your birth star, then he can calculate it for you. Yeah, it depends on the location of the moon at the moment of your birth. So it would identify you more precisely, but you need to give your name and your nakshatra, your birth star, and you send also donation for the ceremony. And the priest would, Swami Vashishanji would name your name in the beginning of the ceremony, dedicating, the merit of this ceremony towards you, towards alleviating of all negativities within you, and like I said, forgiveness, because there's so many things we did that is wrong. So that is offered to you. So somebody say, I am a caregiver for an elder person, and the woman I care for eats meat, and I prepare it for her. But I myself is vegetarian, have difficulty reconciling with this, and wonder if you have any words of wisdom for me. That is difficult, I understand. You are vegetarian, and you have to serve meat. So this is an elderly lady. She's not going to change her habit. You want to even educate her to vegetarianism, you cannot. So it is said in karma yoga, you do the best you can. And then you offer the result of your action. So you take your job as karma yoga. You don't want it. It happened to be like this, and you do the best you can. You do your duty, and you offer the results of your action to the divine. You pray for forgiveness. Okay? So the main thing is your awareness. And somebody say, I have a testimony, Paula Gaspar. Can you have her talk?
Paula Gaspar?
Yeah. So you can give your own verbal testimony, Paula. You wrote a lot, but from Brazil, and right now in UK, so you can share it. You can unmute her, Paula.
Okay. Okay now? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. We cannot see you.
No?
Let me see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but maybe your video doesn't work or something. We cannot see you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, just
Okay. Unmute her.
okay now?
Okay, I can hear you. We cannot see you, but we can hear you, so you can speak.
Okay, I started video now. Start my video. Yeah, I'm new in this program too.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, it's just a testimony, because when I was like 10, 12 years old, I was born in Brazil, and we had a big family. So when I arrived from school, there was that steak on the table for lunch. And then I was brought up by my grandmother, and we would have to eat that steak. And I remember that I would put in a frying pan and fry, and put a lot of salt, and put a lot of oregano, and I could not eat. And then I came to the conclusion that nobody can eat the raw meat. We have to put lots of spices and to disguise something because the taste is not good. So I could not, since then, I knew that I could not be eating meat. But the families made us. And since then, I gave the option to my daughters, but I always offered the best diet with lots of vegetables and lots of fruit. So I don't have this problem. I'm 66 now, and I feel great. And I could never eat meat. When I moved down Brazil, in Brazil, we have a state that everyone loves meat and this barbecues and everything. I could not. And the first time that I tried to go back eating meat, I could not. You know, I know that my constitution is not able to digest meat. So I decided not to eat. And then in the yoga farm, I learned more about eating fish, because people say, well, I can eat fish because fish is light. But we know that there is a lot of negativity in eating fish, as well as in other kinds of meat. So I decided really not to eat any meat, and I feel great. And
Thank
it's
you.
lovely to see you always.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
On the internet, there's a little film of that little girl, very young little girl, that refused to eat meat. And it's so nice, it's very cute, because when she's young and she's already know, I don't want to eat because it's my friend, because I don't think my friend is happy to be fried or something like that, she said. Okay, anybody else?
There's a couple in the Q&A. Radha, should I unmute her or should I just let her?
You can unmute. Radha, you can talk.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Oh,
Swamiji. So my question was about, I just found out in California we have the option now of assisted dying. So dying from a doctor if you have a terminal illness. A friend of mine's brother just did it. He had terminal cancer and was suffering a lot and didn't want to have other people have to take care of him at the end. And then we do it, some people do it with their animals when they're suffering, you know, put them to sleep. And I've sat with that a lot because it's still killing. So I thought about it, but I feel like, well, it relieves suffering. So I think that takes precedence, but I just wanted your opinion on that.
I mean, do you help the animal to die?
Yeah, like my
sick or
dog
something?
couldn't walk anymore. My dog's back legs gave out from her and she couldn't walk anymore. And so the vet suggested that I put her to sleep. This was many years ago before I got into yoga, and I did that. And he came out and gave her a shot. I held her in my arms and she died. You know, and we have that now for humans, assisted suicide when people are terminally ill. And I don't even like to call it assisted suicide because at that point it's assisted dying. You know, they're already dying. But I don't know. It seems like it alleviates suffering, but yet it's still killing. So that's why I'm
The intention is to alleviate suffering. Yeah, and you feel it and you must pray for it. When we are talking about the cases of unawareness, that people out of greed and out of desire, they create harm to animals without caring, and they don't see that these animals have soul and have feelings. So we are talking about this. So what you are talking about is completely different story.
Yeah. So even for humans, the assisted dying is something that is okay in your belief?
Yeah, it's the intention, you see. The intention is to help alleviate pain. In general, when you talk about death, it's a different, more complicated story, because, according to yoga philosophy, when you die is very important time. At that time you will struggle, people will struggle because they don't know, they are not, used to this change of consciousness. They're very attached to the body, so they struggle. In general, we need to help them energetically with prayers and help them to move forward and go through the transition, and not doing anything violent, so that they can move on. Mm-hmm. That's a principle. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
There's a couple of Chinese questions in the chat, in the Q&A.
Okay.
Kumari, can you translate?
Yes. Om. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first question is vegetarian necessary for spiritual sadhana?
Yeah, I just talked
spiritual
about
practice.
I just
是的。
talked
我之前有提到。
Answer is yes.
这个答案是是的。
Okay, next question.
的问题 is there a kind of health ways to that a person who eat a lot of meat in a short time to becomes a vegetarian?
Is there a short way?
A healthy way to that person who eat meat in a short time to become a vegetarian?
Is it supposed to be gradual, or should it happen overnight? Does it matter?
The idea is the person has to be aware of the consequence of eating meat, and they can use their intelligence to choose. Now, oftentimes we cannot explain to a person because it's such a long habit and lots of false idea. So oftentimes we give to them the good vegetarian diet, and they eat and they don't feel missing anything, and they open up to the idea, oh, I can eat vegetarian and it's perfectly fine. You see, so oftentimes it's like that. We started like this to give them the experience of eating healthy vegetarian diet, and then slowly they get to understand that this can be sustainable. They can be healthy eating this, because there's so much wrong habits in the mind about missing something if you're not eating meat. So it depends on people. Some people might take time. Some people might change very quickly. And but still, if the person really understands the ethical, the health, the economical reasons for vegetarianism, then they might cooperate better and longer.
I have the video of the little girl. Can I show it to people?
You can show. The girl dressed in pink. Yeah.
Why do you think you don't want to do that?
Because they're animals and I like animals. I don't miss eating chicken and meat.
How about fish?
Fish?
Yeah.
Fish? Is it an animal?
Yeah.
I won't eat that either.
Oh my God! So
I won't eat animals.
Okay.
I think that they don't really like being cooked in the oven.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you very much. Okay. So that's it. So tomorrow, we have Lila Loling at 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 p.m. East Coast time, 7 a.m. Vietnam time. And she will continue to talk about overcoming the negative effects of artificial living. So she gave a very wonderful workshop today. And tomorrow she will continue. And then we have Olga Mandodari. She will continue with the topic on vastu and earth care. 7 o'clock p.m. West Coast time, 9 o'clock a.m. Vietnam time. And then to conclude the conference, then we have a beautiful sitar concert by Hatsu Patelji, an Indian female sitarist, famous. So she will give a sitar concert at 6 a.m.
6 a.m. we'll meditate. 6:30 she'll start.
Or 6 a.m. you meditate. 6:30 she will play the meditative sitar music. And then that will be at 8 o'clock p.m. in Vietnam time. So Hatsu Patel concert. And then the Mother Earth Puja ceremony, like I say, at 5:30 p.m. West Coast time. Okay. So here Paula say, I think there are some soy meat, minced meat, steaks, good veggie meat that can help a person to change into vegetarianism. So that's her advice. Soy meat, I mean, it looks like meat, but it's made of soy. So a person that is, used to meat eating, they might eat this and they think that it is meat, but in fact it is soy. Somebody is asking about yoga class times.
Already answered.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay. That's it. So we say the prayer. Trayambakam yajamahe sugamnim pustivadanam urvao kameva bandanan vicho muksya mamritan. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugamnim pustivadanam urvao kameva bandanan vicho muksya mamritan. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugamnim pustivadanam urvao kameva bandanan vicho muksya mamritan. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bolo Satguru Shri Shivananda Maharaj ki jai. Bolo Sri Vishnu Devananda Maharaj ki jai. Thank you all the translator, Priya Chaitanya, Yamuna, Kumari, Yashoda, Narayani. Thank you very much for translating. So I see you tomorrow. Okay? Hare Om Tat Sat. Swami Adipa Shakti, can you stay on? I need to speak with you a little bit.
You want to call separately?
Okay, so you can call me back.